Here's some big news coming in from Ukraine. A car has crashed into Russian embassy building in Bucharest, Romania. After collision, the car has caught fire. According to local media, driver died. And during recent weeks, several Russian embassies elsewhere in Europe have been targeted by protesters angered by this invasion of Ukraine. These are visuals coming in of this car crash coming in from Romania in Bucharest. Remember, we're looking at several uprisings, protests in pockets of different parts of the Western countries where they're condemning the Russian invasion. And here, a car has crashed into the Russian embassy building in Bucharest, Romania. After the collision, the car has caught fire, and according to local media, the driver has lost his life. Yeah, in fact, during recent weeks, we're seeing several Russian embassies, almost in all parts of Europe, that have been facing the ire of protesters. Protesters angry have been protesting outside Russian embassies, demanding for the end of this war. And in light of that, here we're looking at a car that's collided into the Russian embassy building, the compound wall in Bucharest, Romania. Here are the visuals where the car has caught fire. Unfortunately, the driver has lost his life. Now, Russian strikes continue to bleed Ukraine for 42 days. Russian Hellbirds have left the Ukrainian capital in shambles as Putin's missiles continue to ravage some of those villages in the outskirts of Kiev. The town of Bordyanka near Kiev is in complete ruins. European media reports that, in fact, they've disclosed at least hundreds of civilians estimated to be killed by Russian invaders. This is what the European media has revealed. Ukraine has said the town would likely record a higher death toll compared to horrific Bucha massacre, which killed hundreds of innocent civilians. Destruction and devastation has taken over Ukraine's besieged port city, Mariupol. Bruised and battered with relentless Russian attacks, civilians in Mariupol are seen fleeing the ravaged city. In Mykolaiv, Russian forces damage a hospital building after a massive explosion of a van that took place, blowing out windows. Meanwhile, you see Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has now given the UN Security Council a harrowing account of atrocities in the town of Bucha, demanding Russian leaders to be brought to justice for this war crime. Zelensky has also accused Russia of using United Nations to justify all horrific war crimes that's unfolded in Ukraine. Now, Russian attacks on the Donetsk region has turned into dust, but Ukraine also won't back down. Ukrainian missiles have reduced a Russian military camp there into complete rubble. Schools have been destroyed amid fierce resistance. India Today's Geeta Mohan brings us this report right from the war zone. Let's have a look.
Massive shelling, massive operation over here in Elianka. You can see there, smoke still billowing. This entire camp was attacked. It had a lot of tanks, armored vehicles, Ural trucks, and artillery carrier vehicles as well. Has been attacked. So officers over here trying to now assess the situation. They're trying to retrieve all the armored vehicles, artillery carriers and tanks as soon as they can, and save as many as they can. But if you see over here, the situation pretty bad. The forces have moved out of here and they're trying to retrieve as many as they can. This is also a base camp where captured Ukrainian tanks and armored vehicles were brought in and then were sent for repair and then to be reused. So a very important camp over here has come under Ukrainian attack. I'm being joined by Officer Ilya, who will explain what really happened over here and how are they trying to contain the Ukrainian forces.
Дальнейшие наши действия идти вперед и только вперед, не останавливаясь. Занимать непосредственно, возвращать.
The only action he is planning now, he knows that we're gonna continue to push and taking back our grounds, which is must be under Republic control.
So ask him how many Ukrainian soldiers were they? This was his force, his team. How many Ukrainian soldiers did his team capture?
Есть у вас вообще за время операции, были украинские пленные у вас?
Да, были много десятков, потому что наш полк уже порядка...
So they took around 17 villages and small...
Надо прекращать.
Okay, let's stop it.
Thank you, sir. We're here in Volvanaka, a city absolutely destroyed. Irina is a resident. Irina, tell us your experience of what really happened over here. You're living over here 24th of Feb.
From 24 to 10, 12 of March. It was very horrible. What else? A lot of жертвы.
Victims.
A lot of victims, childs, old people, young people.
Lost their lives.
Yeah.
How many people left Volvanaka after the attacks? Did they leave the city?
Some lived, but returned, partly returned, and I think now from 5 to 10 thousands.
People are back?
Yes.
Why? The city is destroyed. There is no life right now in the city. Why are you returning?
Because it's my home. I had here work. I had my house, but some partly destroyed, and I think.
You want to rebuild it again, I guess.
But no, so soon as we want.
Major evacuation operation being undertaken over here in Volvanaka. The people over here will be evacuated to camps in Dokuchayevsk, which is a city not very far from here, only to ensure that they're in a safe place, have food, have shelter till the time the city in all probability is reconstructed. So there is a process in place. People's names are put on a list, and those whose names are on the list are taken by buses. A destroyed city that requires humanitarian aid and food. The queue that you see over here are of people of Volvanaka who have queued up to receive their daily bread. This is a van that has come to distribute bread to the people of Volvanaka. There are various other vans that come with other food items, but food is scarce. There is no gas and electricity in Volvanaka, and water also becoming rather scarce in the town, so they're using it with really economically. Administration trying to ensure that at least there's some help that is provided to the people of Volvanaka who have decided to stay on and not leave the town. So this is the first day we have arrived, so have the people from Donetsk. Food for Life is now going to provide food every day. But how difficult was it? If you could ask this gentleman over here, how difficult was it for the days when this food was not being provided?
Тяжело очень было, очень.
It was very hard, he said.
How are they managing food then?
Как вы справлялись? Откуда брали еду?
Ну, запасы, которые бы оставались, вот, те запасы и ели.
So they used supplies they had and share it between each other.
The irony of the conflict today. What you see behind me is called Red Square, taken after the Red Square in Moscow in Russia. Many people over here are still pro-Russia despite the destruction that their city has witnessed. And unfortunately, this Red Square has also fallen victim to the latest conflict. But the people over here say that in 2014-2015, they consider themselves part of Donetsk. And once it was taken over by Ukraine in the 2014-2015 conflict, the statue of Lenin was taken down on the other side. And today we see that the Red Square also no longer stands. When did this food start coming to the city?
From 2 weeks ago, maybe even earlier, I don't remember.
Are you a student?
Yeah. Student from Kharkiv University, Kharkiv National University, HP.
You see destruction everywhere. Are you angry that your city is destroyed?
That's hard to explain, but it's war. It can be rebuilt from. It took years, maybe, but it will be rebuilt. I hope so.
Почти с того света вытянули. Спасибо людям в белых халатах. Низкие поклоны. С Докучаевска. Очень благодарю. Очень.
Her husband was evacuated to Dokuchaevsk, and he was saved by doctors there. So she's saying big thanks from her to doctors who saved his husband's life.
The extent of damage over here shows what really happened in Volvanaka. This is a BMP-2 destroyed, homes bombed, shelling marks on the walls. To take Volvanaka, it took a lot of fight between the Ukrainian forces and the Russian forces. Homes over there, school, absolutely destroyed, bombed. This again is a city that bears a deserted look, but there are still a lot of people who are not going to leave the city of Volvanaka. They're determined to stay here to rebuild the city. Many others who have no place to go. And then there are those who have already left Volvanaka. With video journalist Satya Rautre in Volvanaka, Geeta Mohan for India Today.
All right, there you have it. In different parts of Ukraine, we bring you the factual ground reports coming in from that war-torn country. Even till date, 42 days and counting, we're seeing hectic firing, shelling, missile attacks coming in from the Russian side. In fact, India Today's Geeta Mohan and Gaurav Sawant have been bearing all those hostilities amid the combat zone, bringing us all the factual details on ground, risking their own lives. And here we see amid missile attacks, military camps that have been destroyed, houses that have been left in ruins, several schools now that's been reduced to rubble. Unfortunately, this war has no signs of ending, at least for now. Remember, India Today's reporters on ground bringing us all those details in the face of these attacks. Moscow, in fact, is facing global revulsion and accusations of war crimes after Russian pullout from outskirts of Kiev. Ukraine has raised Bucha killings at the UNSC and called it one of many Russian genocides. The United Kingdom and European Union are calling for stricter sanctions against Russia now.
Streets strewn with corpses. Bodies buried in shallow graves. Burned bodies left in the open. The grisly images of battered Bucha have sparked global outrage. Ukraine has raised the Russian brutality in Bucha at the United Nations Security Council. Kyiv has urged the UN to strip Russia of its veto power.
The UN system must be reformed immediately so that the right of veto will not become the right of a death, so that there is a fair representation of all world regions in the Security Council.
Without naming Russia, India condemned the civilian killings in Bucha and called for an independent probe.
We unequivocally condemn these killings and support the call for an independent investigation.
Moscow is facing global revulsion and accusations of war crimes after the Russian pullout from the outskirts of Kyiv revealed horrors inflicted on the civilian population. The UK has urged G7 to ban Russian ships and set a timetable for oil and gas exit.
On Thursday, I will be urging our NATO and G7 partners to go further in sanctions by joining us in banning Russian ships from our ports, cracking down on more Russian banks, going after industries that are filling Putin's war chest, like gold, and agreeing a clear timetable to eliminate imports of Russian oil, coal and gas.
Germany, France and Spain have expelled dozens of Russian diplomats following the Bucha killings.
I announced that this morning we have decided to expel Russian diplomats and staff from the Russian embassy in Spain, who represent a threat to the interest and security of our country.
The United States is seeking to expel Russia from the UN Human Rights Council.
Yes, the president does not believe, he believes it's ludicrous for Russia to be a member of the Human Rights Council. And certainly the ambassador spoke to this today, and while she was on her overseas trip, and she will continue to make the case in her role when she returns to New York.
Russia has rejected all the charges. Kremlin claims Bucha is a monstrous forgery aimed at maligning Russia.
The entire course of events, a huge amount of data, facts and other parameters do clearly witness that this is a forgery conducted to try and smear the Russian army. It will not work.
Russia is facing other grave charges too. The UN has accused Russia of using cluster bombs in Ukraine.
OHCHR has received credible allegations that Russian forces have used cluster munitions in populated areas at least 24 times.
Cluster munitions pose an immediate threat to civilians during a conflict. Such bombs randomly scatter submunitions or bomblets over a wide area. The Convention on Cluster Munitions is an international treaty that prohibits all use, transfer, production and stockpiling of cluster bombs. World leaders are calling for tougher sanctions and accountability for alleged Russian war crimes in Bucha. Bureau Report, India Today.